How long have you been feeling this way? You wake up exhausted, your mind trapped in a whirlwind of worries. Your heart races, stress consumes you, and every day it feels like you're losing more and more control. You're constantly running, reacting to problems instead of facing them with clarity. But tell me, do you really want to keep living like this? Are you going to let stress keep stealing your peace, your health, and your life? Stress is that silent enemy that traps us in a spiral of exhaustion, anxiety, and despair. But what if I told you that it's not the world suffocating you, but your own reaction to it? The Stoics understood this well. We can't control everything that happens, but we can control how we respond to it. In this video, you'll discover how to train your mind to find serenity in the midst of chaos, eliminate anxiety, and strengthen your resilience. This isn't magic, and it's not cheap self-help. This is philosophy in action. If you've ever felt like stress is consuming you, stay until the end, because today, you're going to learn how to reclaim the peace you thought you had lost. There are moments in life when you get hit so hard that you're forced to wake up. For Sophia, that hit came when she least expected it, and what she discovered afterward changed the way she saw life forever. Sophia had always been the kind of person who needed to be in control, or at least that's what she thought. From the moment she opened her eyes, her day was a race against time. The alarm would go off, and before she could even stretch her arms, she was already checking emails, replying to messages, anticipating problems that didn't even exist yet. Every day was a meticulously organized chaos. Her job at an advertising agency left her no room to breathe. Projects, dissatisfied clients, bosses demanding immediate results. And then there was her personal life, or what was left of it. Her mother insisting she call more often, her friends complaining because she always canceled plans, her exhausted body screaming for her to stop. But she didn't stop. Stress had become her shadow. Her skin was covered in breakouts that wouldn't go away. Her hair was falling out more than usual. And even though she was constantly exhausted, she spent hours tossing and turning in bed at night, unable to sleep. And then, one day, the unexpected happened. It was a Monday. As always, she left home with her phone in one hand, coffee in the other, and the feeling that she was already late, even though it was barely 7 in the morning. While trying to reply to a message and cross the street at the same time, a loud crash made her turn around. A car had slammed into a pole just a few feet away from her. The driver, an older man, was conscious but dazed. People rushed over. Sophia did too, unsure of what to do. Her heart pounded, but not because of the accident, because for the first time in a long time, her mind was fully in the present. She felt the cold air on her skin, heard the sound of traffic, noticed the warmth of the coffee in her fingers, and then something inside her cracked. She cried, but not because of the accident. She cried because suddenly she realized she had spent years in a destructive autopilot mode. Her life had been a constant, "What's next?" never a "What's happening right now?" When the ambulance arrived, the man gave her a weak smile and said something she would never forget. "Thank you for caring, but don't worry. Everything's okay." 2 words, "Everything's okay." And the shocking part was that, for the first time in years, Sophia felt like that could actually be true. That day, she didn't go to the office. She wandered through the city, feeling like she was waking up from a dream she hadn't even known she was in. And it was there, in a small neighborhood cafe, that her life took an unexpected turn. As she stirred her coffee without rushing for the first time in years, her eyes landed on a dusty book on a shelf. The title, Meditations. She opened it at random and read, "If you are troubled by something external, it is not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your judgment of it. And this judgment is within your power to change at any moment." Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who handled battles, betrayals, and the fate of an empire, yet still spoke about calm. Sophia felt a shiver run through her. Was it possible that her suffering didn't come from work, or problems, or chaos, but from the way she was facing them? That day marked the beginning of something different. She didn't quit her job, she didn't escape to a deserted island. She didn't become a Buddhist nun, but she started seeing life through different eyes. She began training her mind like a muscle, questioning her thoughts before letting them consume her, reclaiming control over the only thing she could truly control, her own perception. And here's the surprising part. Stress didn't disappear from her life, but it stopped being her master. So now tell me, do you really think stress is inevitable? Or have you just been taught to live with it? Before we continue, if you're finding value in this content, consider subscribing and becoming an exclusive member to access unique benefits. And tell us in the comments, what's your biggest challenge with stress? And what change are you willing to make to reclaim your peace? Or simply write, I am Stoic. We want to grow together with you. 1. The problem is not the problem. Tell me something, my friend. How many times have you felt like your world was falling apart over something that, just days later, you barely even remember? The traffic that made you late, the meeting that didn't go as planned, the call you never received. In the moment, they seem like tragedies. Stress takes over, drains your energy, and robs you of your peace. And the worst part? It stays inside you, building up like a bomb ready to explode. Imagine two people at a party. Both are dressed in their best outfits, enjoying the atmosphere, when suddenly some kids start playing with water balloons. Without warning, one of them bursts right over them. The first person freezes, looks at their soaked clothes, and feels like the night is ruined. They get angry, complain, curse their bad luck. They can't stop thinking about how unfair it is, how their moment was ruined. The second person, however, shakes off the water, bursts out laughing, and without overthinking it, grabs another balloon and joins the game. Now tell me, who do you think had a better time? The event was the same. The difference was in how they experienced it. And that's exactly how stress works in your life. It's not what happens. It's the story you tell yourself about what happens. But of course, it's not always easy to see it that way in everyday life. When you get an unexpected fine, stress takes over. Frustrated, you complain about the system, about the injustice, about your bad luck. In that state, everything that follows seems worse. A comment from your partner irritates you more than usual. Work feels even more overwhelming, and even the coffee you pour yourself seems either too hot or too cold. Everything affects you because you're carrying a weight that didn't need to be there. Now, what if, instead of seeing it as a punishment, you interpreted it as a simple consequence? Maybe you were distracted at the wheel, or maybe you got too comfortable on a road where there are always checkpoints. Maybe it's a sign that you need to pay more attention. The fine is still there, but the unnecessary suffering disappears. And no, this isn't about ignoring problems or being indifferent. It's about realizing that stress only has power over you if you allow it to. If you don't believe me, let's talk about Manuel Marin. When he founded Halo Tech, a company dedicated to improving workplace safety with smart helmets, he ran into a wall of obstacles. Technical failures, investors who didn't believe in his vision, the pressure of being on the verge of failure. Anyone else would have given up. But Manuel understood something crucial. Every problem was an opportunity for improvement. Instead of panicking, he adjusted, learned, and kept moving forward. Today, his company saves lives in high-risk work environments. So tell me, are you going to keep letting stress steal your life, or are you going to learn how to control it? All it takes is starting to question the way you interpret what happens to you. Try this. First, play devil's advocate. Imagine you're late for work because traffic is terrible. Your first instinct is to curse the day, blame everyone, and let frustration take over. But do this. Defend the situation as if you were its lawyer. What if, instead of being a disaster, it was an opportunity? Maybe this delay saved you from an accident further down the road. Maybe it's a reminder that you need to leave earlier or learn to manage uncertainty better. Epictetus would say that it's not traffic that's upsetting you. It's the story you're telling yourself about it. And if you can change that story, you can change your mindset. Second, rewrite the story you tell yourself. Think about this. You're stuck in a long line at the bank and you feel like you're wasting time. But now, Imagine Epictetus is standing next to you. He looks at you and asks, "So what?" Is it within your control that the line is slow, and you'd have to admit that it's not? What is under your control is what you do with that time. You can spend half an hour mentally complaining, or you can use it to read something interesting, reflect, or simply accept the wait without torturing yourself. Epictetus didn't live in a time of traffic jams, endless meetings, or constant notifications. But if he were here today, he certainly wouldn't lose his peace over things he couldn't control. The question is, will you? 2. Live by principles. They say that deep in the jungle, there lived a chameleon with a special ability. Not only could he change color to blend in, but he did it to fit in. When he was with the parrots, he became bright and talkative. With the jaguars, he took on a dark shade and tried to look strong. And when he was with the mice, he became small and discreet. He thought this made him smarter than the rest, that adapting to every situation was his greatest advantage. But over time, something started to happen. His skin began to crack, his body felt heavier, and his mind wouldn't stop. Every day was a constant struggle to decide what color to adopt, how to behave, what to say to avoid being left out. And so his life became a state of permanent alert. He never rested. He was never at peace. One day, as he tried to change color once more, his skin refused. For the first time, his body couldn't keep up with his mind. He stood there, motionless, feeling the weight of years spent trying to be everything to everyone, living without an identity of his own. That was when an old turtle approached him, looking at him calmly. "You look exhausted," she said. The chameleon sighed. "I am. I feel like I never do the right thing, like I always have to change, like I'm never at peace." The turtle nodded slowly. "And have you ever thought about not changing? About choosing a color and simply being?" The chameleon blinked. The thought had never crossed his mind. He had always believed that his ability to adapt was his greatest strength. But now, he realized it was the very reason he never found peace. That night, he looked at his reflection in the water, and for the first time in his life, he decided to do nothing, not to change, not to worry about what others expected. And in that moment, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Silence. His mind stopped racing, his breathing deepened, his body felt lighter. He had found what he had been searching for all along, tranquility. Because the problem had never been the world around him. It was him, allowing anything and everything to define him. And tell me, my friend, how many times have you felt the same way? Living without principles is like trying to assemble an IKEA cabinet without instructions. You can try, but you'll probably end up frustrated with extra pieces, wondering where it all went wrong. And just like that, without realizing it, stress becomes your lifelong companion, wearing you down with every step you take. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. He, who ruled an empire filled with conflict and chaos, knew that the only way to remain calm was to hold on to his principles. He made it clear in one of his reflections, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. And let me tell you something you might not expect. Having solid principles isn't just about ethics. It's a powerful tool to free yourself from stress. When you know what you stand for, decisions become easier. Other people's opinions lose their grip on you, and uncertainty stops draining your energy. So how can you live under the guidance of your principles and not let stress take over your life? The most important step is to define your principles. Grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down 3 values that truly matter to you. Not what sounds good, not what you think you should put. Write down what, if taken from you, would make you feel like you were no longer yourself. Is it honesty, discipline, freedom? Write them down without overthinking. From now on, use them as your filter. Every time stress overwhelms you, stop and remember those values. Ask yourself, what would my best self do in this situation? If one of your values is calmness, do you let yourself get worked up, or do you seek a solution? If it's honesty, do you let yourself be swayed by what others want, or do you act with integrity? Having clear principles means you don't have to rethink every step. You already know where your internal compass is pointing. And choose the people around you wisely. No one is immune to the influence of their environment. If you spend time with people who easily betray their values, sooner or later, you'll end up doing the same. Living without principles is like being a chameleon that changes colors so much that it eventually cracks under the effort. So tell me, if you had to choose just 3 values to guide your life, what would they be? Because in the end, what you choose to believe in and follow is what defines your peace of mind. 3. Write and free your mind. Have you ever felt like your head is a whirlwind of thoughts, worries, and to-do lists? Like your mind is overcrowded with ideas crashing into each other, never giving you a moment of peace. It's that feeling of being overwhelmed without knowing exactly why. A silent stress that builds up, drains your energy, and, if you don't release it, eventually turns into pure anxiety. Imagine a desk covered in scattered papers, loose notes, unfinished tasks, thoughts spread everywhere. You can't find what you need, you feel frustrated, and the more you try to organize it, the messier it seems to get. That's exactly how your mind works when you don't unload your worries. But here's the trick. As soon as you start sorting things out, throwing away what's unnecessary, and putting everything in its place, suddenly, everything feels clearer. The same happens with writing. I know what you're thinking. I've never been good at writing. But the truth is, you don't need to be a professional writer or fill pages with perfect words. What you need is a space to empty your mind, to let go of what's weighing you down, and to start seeing what truly matters. Think about it. How many times have you felt anxious without knowing exactly why? Everything seems fine, but there's something lingering in the background, keeping you restless. You don't know what it is, and that stresses you out even more. But what if I told you that, in those moments, writing could save you? Let me tell you the inspiring story of Marjorie Cantor. At 82 years old, she had to face eviction from her home in Madrid. Can you imagine the desperation and stress she must have felt? It must have been overwhelming. But do you know how she freed her mind? She found refuge in writing. She took her notebook and began to pour out every emotion, every fear, every uncertainty. And in that process, she transformed her anguish into strength. Writing didn't change her reality, but it gave her control over how she responded to it. Because that's what truly matters. You can't stop life from bringing problems, but you can decide how to face them. And writing is a powerful tool to help you do just that. Seneca understood this well. Every night before going to bed, he would sit down and write about his day. Not for leisure, but because he knew that putting his thoughts on paper helped him see clearly what needed improvement, what he needed to let go of, and what truly mattered. He reflected on his mistakes, his achievements, and his emotions. It was his way of making sure his mind didn't turn into a battlefield. So now tell me, why don't you do the same? It's easier than you think. Just follow these steps. First, ask yourself a simple question. What's worrying me today? Don't search for perfect answers, just let your mind speak. Then, write without holding back. Don't worry about grammar or whether what you're writing makes sense. The goal isn't to make it pretty, it's to make it honest. Imagine that you're clearing out unnecessary papers from that mental desk. Finally, find solutions. Once everything is out of your head and onto paper, identify what's within your control and what isn't. If you can do something about it, write it down. If you can't change it, accept that dwelling on it will only drain you. Because, my friend, living with a mind full of scattered thoughts is like trying to find something important in a drawer overflowing with useless junk. You can't let stress pile up until it suffocates you. Writing is how you open that drawer, get rid of the clutter, and keep only what truly matters. As Seneca once said, as long as we have writing, we are never truly alone. So tell me, are you ready to free your mind on paper? 4. Organize your space, organize your mind. Have you ever noticed how simply walking into a room can completely change the way you feel? Think about it. How do you feel when you come home after a long, exhausting day and everything is in its place, clean and organized? You take a deep breath, feel a small wave of relief, and for a moment everything seems calm. Now imagine the opposite. You walk in and there are clothes on the floor, dishes in the sink, piles of papers on the table. Instead of relaxing, you feel like the stress of the day is still with you, like you just can't escape it. And no, I'm not making this up. Environmental psychology has proven that our physical surroundings have a direct impact on our mental health. Did you know that a messy space can actually increase cortisol levels? Hard to believe, but true. When there's no order, anxiety spikes, making your mind feel just as chaotic as the room you're in. But a clean and organized space promotes calm and focus, helping to reduce mental exhaustion. You've probably experienced this. You sit down to focus on something important, but before you know it, your attention drifts to the piles of papers, the missing pen, or the coffee cup that's been sitting there for days. And just like that, anxiety builds up. Not because the work is difficult, but because the mess makes it feel heavier. The Stoics understood that external order influences inner peace. Seneca emphasized the importance of simplicity and organization in daily life to achieve mental clarity. Because tell me, can you picture Seneca in his Senate office, with documents scattered everywhere, scrolls piled up on the floor, and writing letters among a mountain of random objects he can't even remember collecting? Of course not. You can't think clearly when everything around you is chaos. And before you start thinking, this means you need a minimalist space straight out of a home decor magazine, with scented candles and a pristine sofa no one actually sits on. Relax. Your home doesn't have to look like a Scandinavian design showroom. The goal is for your environment to work for you, not against you. You shouldn't walk into a room and feel like it's screaming at you to clean it. Let's keep it simple. Start by getting rid of what you don't need. You don't have to deep clean your entire home in a day. Just spend 10 minutes a day removing things you no longer use. 10 minutes. Open a drawer, a shelf, whatever. Get rid of things that are just taking up space. Trust me, the simple act of freeing up physical space will make you feel like you're freeing up mental space too. Next, create specific zones. Think about this. How many times have you wasted time looking for your keys, earbuds, or important documents just because they don't have a designated place? Assign a specific spot for each item, and you'll save not just minutes, but also unnecessary frustration. Finally, establish small organization habits. You don't need to spend hours cleaning, but small daily actions make a big difference. Making your bed in the morning, clearing the table after meals, or tidying up your desk before going to bed. These little habits create a sense of control and calm. Because in the end, stress is like clutter. If you let it pile up, it will overwhelm you. And if your external space reflects your inner world, tell me, what does your current environment say about you? Let us know in the comments how you plan to organize your space to free your mind. 5. Flow with change. My friend, let's be honest. No one likes having their plans changed. It could be something small, like your flight getting delayed by half an hour. Ugh, annoying. Or something big, like your job suddenly requiring you to move to another city. Boom, total chaos. And the moment we hear the word change, our mind goes into panic mode. Red alert. We cling to the idea that things should stay the way they are, as if that were even possible. But life doesn't ask. Life happens. And if you keep resisting it, the only one who's going to suffer is you. Think of a forest in the middle of a storm. The wind roars, branches creak, and the rain pounds against the ground. In the midst of it all, there are 2 trees. One is a massive oak, imposing, with a thick trunk and roots that seem unshakable. The other is a thin reed, fragile at first glance, bending with every gust of wind. The oak resists with all its strength. It stands firm, refusing to give in, convinced that its strength will help it survive. But the wind doesn't stop. It pushes harder and harder until suddenly, crack, the oak's trunk snaps in 2. Meanwhile, the reed bends with each gust. It moves with the wind, adapts, sways without breaking. And when the storm passes, it's still standing, completely intact. Now tell me, when life hits you with unexpected changes, which one are you? The oak that holds on until it breaks, or the reed that flows with the inevitable? Resilience, the ability to adapt to adversity, is directly linked to better mental health. The more we learn to go with the flow instead of resisting change, the less stress we accumulate. Epictetus understood this well. He taught that while we can't control external events, we can control how we react to them. Because life will always move in unexpected directions, and we only have two choices: fight the inevitable or learn to adapt. Now, picture this. You've been at your job for years. Everything is under control. You have your routine, your desk, your favorite coffee shop near the office. And then, out of nowhere, your company tells you they need to relocate you to another city. Suddenly, everything you took for granted disappears. That's when the internal battle begins. Fear, resistance, anxiety. Why change something that was working just fine? But here's what really matters. In this situation, what could you do to keep stress from consuming you? First, anticipate change. This doesn't mean trying to predict the future, but rather understanding that nothing is permanent. Everything changes at some point. If you accept this as a fact, change won't catch you off guard. You'll see it as part of life, not as a threat. Second, practice flexibility. Sometimes, the best opportunities come disguised as problems. Maybe that new office in another city will push you out of your routine and help you grow in ways you never imagined. But if you shut down and obsess over keeping things the same, you'll never find out. And third, find opportunities. In every change, no matter how uncomfortable, there's a lesson or a new possibility. If instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What can I learn from this?" everything shifts. Because the truth is, life isn't static, it never has been. And the sooner you learn to move with it, the less weight you'll carry on your shoulders. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make of it." So tell me, are you going to keep resisting, or are you finally going to start flowing? 6. Let go of what you can't control. Imagine this. You're driving peacefully, everything is going fine, the day seems normal, until bam! Your car starts making a strange noise, the dashboard lights flicker, and within seconds the engine dies. You pull over, try to start it again. Nothing. There you are, sitting behind the wheel, staring at the clock while stress tightens around your chest. No way. Not today. Why now? Why me? You check your phone, try to find a solution, but the reality is clear. The car isn't going to start by magic. So if you really think about it, does it actually help to stress over something you can't control? And believe me, I know what I'm talking about. Something similar happened to me while traveling. I had planned an amazing surprise, a picnic under the shade of the Eiffel Tower. Everything was set, every detail carefully thought out. But just before the trip, I checked the weather forecast. Heavy rain guaranteed. And that's when my own mental storm began. I spent days obsessively checking the weather app as if that would somehow change things. I didn't enjoy the walks, the food, or even time with my partner because my mind was fixated on one thing: that day, that surprise, that damn storm. The worst part? Since I couldn't say anything about the surprise, my partner noticed my frustration and started worrying even more without knowing why. And in the end, what happened? It rained. All that anxiety didn't change a thing. It only stole my chance to enjoy the rest of the trip. Looking back, I wish I had known about the dichotomy of control in that moment. I wish Epictetus had magically appeared to tell me, "This is out of your hands, so let it go." It would have saved me from unnecessary stress, and more importantly, I would have enjoyed what was within my control. The other day, I watched a TED Talk by Guy Winch that talked about this exact issue. He explained that obsessing over what we can't change only drains us mentally. But if we train our minds to focus our energy on what is in our hands, stress decreases, and we actually feel more in control. So let's put this into practice. First, learn to separate things. Grab a piece of paper and write down all your worries. Then split them into two groups, the ones you can control and the ones you can't. Just doing this alone is a reality check because often we carry burdens that were never ours to begin with. Now, instead of exhausting yourself over what you can't change, ask yourself, What can I do? If there's traffic, listen to a great podcast instead of wasting half an hour complaining. If someone criticizes you, choose how to respond instead of replaying it in your head for days. And if the weather forecast says it's going to rain, take an umbrella and move on. And most importantly, accept that some things just are the way they are. And that's okay. It's not your job to fix everything or control every detail. Trying to do so is like trying to catch the wind with your hands. It only wears you out and you achieve nothing. So the next time life throws something at you that's out of your control, you'll be ready. Now tell us in the comments, what's something that's been keeping you up at night, but in reality, wasn't in your hands? How are you going to let it go? We'd love to hear from you. 7. Look beyond the moment. I know, my friend, I know. There are days when everything feels like chaos. You feel lost without direction, unsure of what to do with your life. Maybe you don't have the job you want, things aren't turning out as you expected, and every day feels like a roller coaster of worries. The uncertainty weighs on you, stress builds up, and the feeling of being stuck makes it hard to breathe. But pause for a second, because right now, you're only seeing one page of your story. And tell me, have you ever judged an entire book just by reading a single chapter? Think of life as a full book. Every chapter has a purpose, even the hardest ones. There are moments of tension, confusion, and defeat, but there are also unexpected turns, growth, and victories. The problem is that when you're stuck in a bad chapter, you think the whole story is like this, but it's not. The story continues, changes, develops, and what feels like the end of the world today will, in a few years, just be another anecdote along your journey. And this isn't just a nice idea. Science backs it up. Positive psychology has shown that people who maintain a long-term perspective have greater resilience and emotional well-being. In other words, when you stop focusing only on the immediate problem and look at the bigger picture, stress loses its power. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He often reflected on the insignificance of present worries when viewed within the vast context of time and the universe. Because when you look from above, when you take a step back, you realize that many of the things keeping you up at night today won't matter at all tomorrow. So let's put this into practice. If you're feeling stuck in uncertainty right now, unsure of what to do with your life, I want you to try something. Imagine yourself 5 or 10 years from now, looking back at this stressful moment. Do you really think it will seem as serious as it does now? Or will it just be another phase that led you to something better? And don't stop there. Set long-term goals, objectives that truly inspire you. Because when you have a clear direction, obstacles stop being unbreakable walls and instead become steps that help you climb higher. Lastly, look back. Think about the difficult moments you've already overcome. Do you remember a time when you thought everything was lost? And what happened after that? You moved forward. You grew, you learned. This time won't be any different. So tell me, how would your perception of your current problems change if you saw them from the perspective of your future self? Because right now, stress is consuming you, clouding your vision, making you believe that this moment defines your entire life. But when you take a step back, when you understand that this is just a chapter and not the whole book, the weight becomes lighter. You can't keep letting stress control you just because you can't see the path today. Because, my friend, your story is still being written. 8. Be more grateful, stress less. Let me tell you the story of a couple, Amparo and Vicente. Picture them, living peacefully in their home in Massanassa, Valencia. Their house isn't a mansion, but it's their refuge. Every corner is filled with memories, photos, and small details they've built together over the years. Until one day, without warning, the storm arrives. The rain doesn't stop. The water rises, first a few inches, then half a meter, and within hours, their home is underwater. Everything they've built, their sense of security, their most precious belongings, gone beneath the flood. When the water finally recedes, all that remains is destruction. Ruined furniture, damaged walls, the smell of dampness clinging to every space. How do you move forward after something like this? They could have let themselves be consumed by despair. They could have spent months cursing their bad luck, replaying over and over how unfair it was. But instead, they chose something different. They joined the Programma Respiro Termal in Orense, a program designed to help people in difficult situations find well-being. There, among thermal waters and psychological support, they understood something crucial. They could keep seeing water as their enemy, or they could make peace with it. They couldn't change what happened, but they could choose how to live from that moment on. And tell me, my friend, how many times have you been stuck mourning what you lost instead of appreciating what you still have? Because that's exactly what stress does. It blinds you. It makes you focus only on what's missing, what went wrong, what worries you. But if you shift your perspective and start practicing gratitude, everything changes. No, this isn't just a nice idea. Science backs it up. Positive psychology has proven that gratitude lowers cortisol levels, the stress hormone, while increasing dopamine and serotonin, the chemicals responsible for well-being. Thought leaders like Roxy Nafusi have spoken about this in their books and conferences, explaining how training the mind to focus on the positive can completely transform the way we live. Because it's not happiness that makes us grateful, it's gratitude that makes us happy. And here's the key question. If you were a Stoic, how would you handle this? Think about it for a moment. If you had to choose a favorite Stoic like they were the superheroes of philosophy, who would it be? Seneca, with his sharp wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, with his unshakable mindset. Epictetus, who never let anyone or anything dictate his inner peace. It doesn't matter who you choose, because today, you're going to act like a Stoic. And that means you can't keep letting stress consume you. You have to train your mind to focus on gratitude for what you already have. Start by keeping a gratitude journal. You don't have to write an essay every day. Just jot down 3 things you're grateful for. It can be something big, like a major achievement, or something small, like a hot cup of coffee in the morning or the sound of someone you love laughing. Express it. We often take the people around us for granted. Telling someone how much you appreciate them not only strengthens your relationship, but also deepens your own sense of gratitude. And finally, practice mindfulness. Stop living on autopilot. Pause for a moment and notice what's around you. The sunlight streaming through the window, the music playing in the background, the feeling of fresh air on your skin. You're here now. And that, my friend, is already a reason to be grateful. Because in the end, it's not about waiting for life to be perfect to find peace. It's about learning to see what you already have with new eyes. And to make sure you don't forget, I'll leave you with a quote from monk David Steindl-Rast. It's not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratitude that makes us happy. 9. Accept what comes. Have you ever had something terrible happen in your life, only to realize later that it was actually the best thing that could have happened? At the time, it felt like the end of the world, but then, boom, it opened a door you didn't even know existed. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a farmer who lived in a small village. One day, his only horse ran away. The neighbors, shocked, said, "What a misfortune. What bad luck." But the farmer, with unshakable calm, simply replied, "Good luck? Bad luck, who knows?" A few days later, the horse returned, but it wasn't alone. It had brought back several wild horses. Now, the farmer had more wealth than he had ever imagined. His neighbors, amazed, exclaimed, "What a blessing, you're so lucky." To which the farmer once again replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" Shortly after, his son, while trying to tame one of the wild horses, fell and broke his leg. The neighbors, always eager to comment, said, "What a tragedy, your son is injured." But the farmer, with his usual serenity, repeated, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" Weeks later, the army arrived in the village, recruiting all the young men for war. But the farmer's son, with his broken leg, was left behind. And there were the neighbors again. "What great fortune! Your son has been spared." And with a slight smile, the farmer said, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The lesson? What seems like a disaster today might be the best thing that ever happened to you tomorrow. The only thing that changes is your perspective. This is what Marcus Aurelius called amor fati, love for fate. It's not just about accepting what happens, but embracing it as if you had chosen it. He saw every obstacle as an essential piece of his life's puzzle. He didn't let stress destroy his peace because he understood that happiness isn't about controlling the future. It's about living the present with serenity. As he once said, true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future. So tell me, are you going to keep exhausting yourself fighting against what has already happened? Or are you going to do as Marcus Aurelius did and learn to love whatever life puts in your path? Think about it. Losing your partner might seem like the worst thing that could happen. But what if you were actually trapped in a relationship that wasn't good for you? What if the job loss that has you on the edge of collapse is actually the sign you needed to chase something better? So how can you learn to accept what comes? I know it's not easy, but I promise it's worth it. Here are 3 things that have worked for me. First, practice radical acceptance. And this doesn't mean resigning yourself like someone saying, "Oh well, that's life." No, of course not. It means accepting what happens without pointless resistance. Your phone broke, and you'll be without it for a week? Welcome to the 19th century, my friend. Use it as an opportunity to disconnect for a while. Second, find the lesson. Every situation has something to teach you, even if it's not obvious at first. If a plan gets canceled, maybe it's the perfect opportunity to enjoy some time alone doing something you truly love. If you lost a client, maybe they were draining your energy, and now you can focus on better opportunities. Third, develop a flexible mindset. Clinging to how things should be only leads to suffering. Life is like a restaurant where sometimes the dish you ordered never arrives, but they bring you something unexpected and delicious. If everything is constantly changing, why keep fighting reality? Because life, my friend, is like a river. You can try to swim against the current, kick and scream, or you can let go, flow, and discover shores you never imagined. So, are you going to keep fighting the inevitable, or will you learn to flow with life? Stress doesn't come from what happens, but from how we interpret it. But here's where the most important part comes in, the final piece. The secret that makes the difference between staying trapped in stress or finally taking back control of your life. 10. Find your balance. Imagine a tightrope walker moving carefully across a thin rope, suspended high in the air. Every step is an act of precision, a dance between firmness and flexibility. They can't lean too far to one side or the other because any excess would make them lose balance. Their eyes stay fixed ahead, adjusting their body with each movement. Their only goal is to move forward without falling. But suddenly they speed up. They want to reach the other side faster, cover more ground in less time. Their movements become abrupt, their breathing more frantic, and without realizing it, they start tilting too much in one direction. They try to correct it by leaning the other way, but now the imbalance is even worse. Their steps become erratic. Their body struggles to compensate, but it's too late. They wobble, lose control, and boom, they fall. The problem wasn't the rope. It wasn't the height, nor even the distance ahead. The problem was losing balance. And let's be honest, that's exactly how many people live today. They have no balance. You've probably been there, waking up and immediately checking your phone, answering emails while eating breakfast, spending hours in front of the computer, eating lunch at your desk, staying connected even while walking down the street. And when you finally get into bed instead of resting, your mind is still racing, thinking about everything left unfinished. The problem isn't work, the problem is that you've forgotten how to live. And the worst part? You think you have no choice, that stress is just part of the deal. But no, of course not. What you're missing is balance, so tell me, do you really think the solution is to go even faster, to be even more productive, to tighten the rope even more? Or maybe the answer is to let go a little, to simplify, to find a rhythm you can actually sustain. Let me tell you about Yoko Ogasawara. This 74-year-old Japanese woman decided to simplify her life to the extreme. Not because she was poor or couldn't afford more, but because she realized that many modern worries are unnecessary. She doesn't use a bed. She sleeps on a folded futon. She doesn't have large towels, just a small one that's enough. Her house isn't filled with objects, but with space to breathe. And you know what? She's happy, because she found balance in moderation. And she reminds me of the Stoics. For them, temperance was one of the fundamental virtues. They understood that excess in any direction only leads to chaos. Working without rest destroys you, but living without purpose is just as harmful. Eating without limits makes you sick, but depriving yourself of everything is also a mistake. The key is finding the middle ground, the place where life flows without wearing you down. Seneca put it perfectly. Life is very short, and the task of living it is difficult. But we must do so with dignity and courage. And what does that mean? That you need to learn how to balance things before stress completely takes over your life. If you don't want stress to consume you, and you want to find balance, the first step is to set a boundary. If your workday ends at 7, it ends at 7, not at 8. Not at 9 while eating dinner with your laptop open. Not in bed checking emails with the excuse of just one more minute. If you don't set a limit, no one will do it for you. Do something that pulls you out of the cycle of stress. And no, it doesn't have to be meditating on a mountaintop or doing yoga at sunrise. It can be taking a walk with no destination, cooking without rushing, listening to music while doing absolutely nothing else. Something that truly disconnects you, not a half break where your mind is still stuck on your to-do list. And here's the key question: is this really that important? Is all this stress really worth it? Ask yourself. Sometimes we're on autopilot, chasing things that in 5 years we won't even remember. And in the meantime, we're missing life. Because, my friend, life is like that tightrope. If you don't learn to balance yourself, sooner or later you will fall. So tell me, are you going to keep letting stress control you, or are you finally going to walk a little lighter? Stress doesn't have to keep ruling your life. Every day you have a choice. Keep carrying worries you can't control, or let go, breathe, and find your balance. It's not about eliminating stress completely, but about learning how to manage it, about understanding that the key lies in how you choose to respond to each situation. The Stoics knew this well. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we face it. And every small change you make today, letting go of what's out of your hands, finding your balance, looking beyond the moment, will bring you closer to a life that is calmer, stronger, and most importantly, truly yours. If you've made it this far, let us know in the comments. I choose calm over chaos. We'd love to hear from you. That way, I'll know who the true Stoic warriors are who made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like so you don't miss out on what's coming next. I also invite you to check out our playlist, which you'll see on the screen. It's packed with ideas, stories, and advice to help you navigate life with more wisdom and confidence. Click it, and let's keep moving forward together. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your inner Stoic.